The psychology of rich people. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning with every dollar, every investment, every business, and every possession gone. Your bank account is empty. Your house is no longer yours. Your expensive car has disappeared. Your investments have vanished. Everything you spent years building is gone. Now ask yourself one question. Would you be able to become wealthy again? For most people, that thought is terrifying. But for many truly wealthy people, the answer is surprisingly simple. Yes. Not because they possess magical abilities. Not because they know secret shortcuts. Not because life has always been fair to them. But because they understand something that most people never discover. Wealth is created by the mind before it is reflected in the bank account. Money is the result. Thinking is the cause. This is why some people lose everything and rebuild an even greater fortune, while others receive unexpected wealth, only to lose it all within a few years. The difference isn't the amount of money they had. The difference is the psychology behind it. Most people spend their lives asking, "How can I make more money?" Rich people often ask a different question. "How can I become more valuable?" Most people chase paychecks. Rich people build assets. Most people work only for today's income. Rich people build tomorrow's opportunities. And perhaps the most important difference of all, most people try to change their financial situation without changing the way they think. That is like trying to harvest fruit from a tree whose roots are dying. It simply doesn't work. Today, we are going far beyond money. We are exploring the hidden psychology that shapes financial success. The beliefs, the habits, the decisions, the emotional discipline, and the invisible patterns that separate those who build lasting wealth from those who spend their entire lives chasing it. Some of these ideas may challenge what you've believed for years. Some may inspire you. Others may completely change the way you think about success. But if you stay until the end of this journey, you will begin to see wealth through an entirely different lens. Not as something reserved for a lucky few, but as something built through consistent thinking, disciplined action, and lifelong growth. So, find a quiet place. Put away every distraction. Take a deep breath. Open your mind. Because today, we're not simply learning how rich people make money. We're discovering how they think. And that changes everything. Relaxation and mental preparation. Before we begin, take a slow, deep breath. Hold it for just a moment. Now breathe out slowly. Again. Breathe in. And breathe out. Allow your shoulders to relax. Let the noise of the day fade into the background. Forget about yesterday's mistakes. Forget about today's stress. Forget about tomorrow's worries. For the next hour, give yourself permission to learn. Not just to hear words, but to examine your own beliefs. Because every lasting transformation begins with awareness. Many people spend years trying to improve their financial lives. They work harder. They search for better opportunities. They hope that one day everything will finally change. Yet they overlook the one place where every financial decision is first made: the mind. Every investment begins as an idea. Every business begins as a vision. Every fortune begins as a belief that something better is possible. Long before wealth appears in someone's bank account, it exists in their thinking. That doesn't mean positive thinking alone creates riches. Far from it. Thinking without action produces nothing. But action without the right thinking often produces frustration. Both are necessary. Your thoughts influence your decisions. Your decisions become your habits. Your habits shape your future. This journey isn't about comparing yourself with wealthy people. It's about understanding the principles that help them become who they are. Some of those principles can be practiced regardless of your current financial situation. Whether you're a student, an employee, an entrepreneur, or someone simply trying to build a better future, the psychology we'll explore today can begin changing your life immediately. So remain curious. Stay humble. Question old beliefs. And prepare to see money, success, and yourself from a completely new perspective. Let's begin. Motivational introduction. There is a common belief that rich people are simply born different. That they have better opportunities, better connections, better luck. Sometimes those advantages exist. But history is filled with people who started with almost nothing and still built extraordinary lives. What separated them from everyone else? It wasn't just intelligence. It wasn't just talent. It wasn't even money. It was the way they interpreted the world around them. While others saw obstacles, they searched for opportunities. While others feared failure, they viewed it as education. While others spent their income, they invested in their future. Their psychology shaped their choices, and those choices shaped their lives. Imagine two architects standing before an empty piece of land. One sees an empty field. The other sees the blueprint of a magnificent building. Both are looking at the same land, but only one can already picture what it can become. The same principle applies to wealth. Your future is often limited not by what you possess today, but by what you're able to imagine, believe, and consistently build. Throughout this journey, we'll uncover 10 psychological patterns that many wealthy people share. These are not guarantees of riches. They are timeless principles that help people make wiser financial decisions, develop stronger character, and create opportunities where others see limitations. As you listen, don't simply ask, "Do rich people think this way?" Instead ask, "How can I begin developing these habits in my own life?" Because knowledge becomes powerful only when it is applied. Today is not about admiring successful people from a distance. It is about learning from them, and perhaps discovering that the greatest investment you will ever make is the investment you make in your own mind. Now, let's begin with the first psychological principle that changes everything. Rich people think long-term. Chapter 1. Rich people think long-term. Imagine two men standing in a forest. The first carries an axe. The second carries a small bag of seeds. The man with the axe spends the entire day cutting down trees and selling the wood. At sunset, he returns home with money in his pocket. He has earned enough to survive another day. The second man spends the day planting seeds. As the sun sets, he has earned almost nothing. People passing by laugh at him. "What a waste of time," they say. "You worked all day and made almost no money." The man simply smiles. Because he is not working for today's sunset. He is working for the forest that will grow over the next 20 years. That is the difference between short-term thinking and long-term thinking. Most people make decisions based on today's comfort. Rich people often make decisions based on tomorrow's freedom. They understand that the greatest rewards rarely arrive immediately. They are built patiently, one decision at a time. The story of David and Michael. David and Michael graduated from the same university. Both were intelligent. Both found good jobs. Both earned almost the same salary. During the first year, their lives looked nearly identical. But their thinking was completely different. Every time David received his salary, he asked himself, "What can I enjoy today?" He upgraded his phone, bought fashionable clothes, spent weekends chasing entertainment. He believed that if he worked hard, he deserved to spend everything he earned. Michael asked himself a different question. "What can I build today that will improve my life 5 years from now?" He bought books. He attended training programs. He invested a portion of every paycheck. He learned new skills after work. His friends often teased him. "You worry too much. Enjoy life while you're young. You only live once." Michael smiled. He wasn't refusing to enjoy life. He was refusing to sacrifice his future for temporary pleasure. 10 years later, the difference was extraordinary. David still depended entirely on his monthly paycheck. Michael had investments producing income. He owned part of businesses. His skills had increased his earning power. People called him lucky. But luck had very little to do with it. His future had been shaped by 10 years of long-term thinking. The marshmallow lesson. Years ago, researchers conducted a famous experiment with young children. Each child was given a simple choice. They could eat one marshmallow immediately, Or wait a while and receive 2 marshmallows instead. Some children ate the first marshmallow within seconds. Others waited patiently. The experiment became famous because researchers later discovered that many of the children who learned to delay gratification also developed habits associated with long-term success. The lesson isn't about marshmallows. It's about self-control. Life constantly offers us similar choices. Spend now. Or invest for later. Seek comfort today. Or build freedom tomorrow. The ability to delay gratification is one of the most powerful financial habits anyone can develop. The oak tree. Imagine planting an oak tree. Would you expect it to become enormous in a month? Of course not. Strong trees grow slowly. They develop deep roots before reaching great heights. Wealth follows the same principle. People often see someone's success and assume it happened quickly. What they don't see are the years of preparation, the nights spent learning, the sacrifices made when no one was watching, the countless small decisions that slowly built an extraordinary life. Lasting wealth grows much like an oak tree. Patiently, quietly, steadily. Rich people ask different questions. Many people ask, "How much money can I make this month?" Rich people often ask, "What can I build that will continue creating value for years?" Many people ask, "What will make me happy today?" Rich people ask, "What decision will improve my future?" Those questions may seem similar, but they produce completely different lives. Your questions determine your focus. Your focus influences your decisions. And your decisions create your future. Reflection. Take a moment and answer these questions honestly. When you make financial decisions, are you thinking about this weekend? Or the next 10 years? Do your daily habits move you closer to your future? Or only satisfy today's desires? If someone watched the way you spend your money, your time, and your energy, would they conclude that you're building a future? Or simply reacting to the present? Remember this. The richest life is not built by making perfect decisions every day. It is built by making wise decisions consistently. Every page you read, every skill you develop, every investment you make, every unnecessary expense you avoid, every hour you spend improving yourself. These are all seeds. At first, they seem insignificant. But one day, they become a forest. Never underestimate the power of thinking beyond today. Because the future belongs to those who prepare for it while others are distracted by the present. Yet long-term thinking alone is not enough. Many people dream about becoming wealthy for decades. But they misunderstand the true purpose of money itself. They spend their lives chasing money, while wealthy people learn to make money work for them. That is the next psychological shift we'll explore. They see money as a tool, not a goal. Chapter 2. They see money as a tool, not a goal. Imagine giving 2 people the exact same tool. One person receives a hammer and uses it to build a beautiful home. The other receives the same hammer but leaves it lying on the ground, occasionally showing it to friends and saying, "Look what I own." Years later, one person has a house filled with warmth, security, and memories. The other still has only a hammer. The difference was never the tool. It was how they chose to use it. Money works the same way. Many people spend their entire lives chasing money as if money itself is the destination. But wealthy people often understand a different truth. Money is not the destination. It is the vehicle. Money is a tool. A tool to create opportunities. A tool to solve problems. A tool to build businesses. A tool to improve lives. A tool to create freedom. When you misunderstand the purpose of money, you begin serving it. When you understand the purpose of money, money begins serving you. That simple shift changes everything. The story of Grace and Sophia. Grace and Sophia were cousins. They grew up together, attended the same schools, and eventually found successful careers. Both were ambitious. Both wanted financial security. But they had completely different relationships with money. Every payday, Grace asked herself one question: "What can I buy?" She loved expensive handbags. She upgraded her phone almost every year. She believed success should be visible. When her salary increased, her lifestyle increased even faster. The more she earned, the more she spent. From the outside, her life looked glamorous. Friends admired her social media posts. They complimented her fashionable clothes and luxurious vacations. Few people knew that behind those smiling photographs were growing debts, sleepless nights, and constant financial pressure. Sophia viewed money differently. She didn't hate beautiful things. She simply believed money had a greater purpose. Every time she received her salary, she divided it carefully. One portion covered her living expenses. Another portion went into investments. Some funded courses that improved her skills. Some helped her start a small online business. And every month, she set aside a little to help people in need. Her friends often questioned her. "Why don't you enjoy your money more?" She would smile and reply, "I am enjoying it. I'm using it to build a future instead of buying temporary excitement." The first few years looked ordinary. Grace appeared wealthier. Sophia appeared average. But appearances can be deceptive. 10 years later, the difference was remarkable. Grace still depended entirely on her monthly paycheck. Sophia owned investments that generated income. Her business continued to grow. She had choices. She wasn't trapped by every unexpected expense. The money she had once treated as a tool had quietly built a life of freedom. The taxi and the bus. Imagine standing beside two vehicles. One is a taxi. The other is a bus. A taxi carries only one passenger at a time. A bus carries many. Now imagine money. Many people use money like a taxi. It carries them from one purchase to another. One bill. One expense. One moment of pleasure. Then it's gone. Rich people often use money like a bus. Every dollar is sent to carry more opportunities. It helps build businesses. It purchases assets. It creates systems. It produces even more money. Instead of asking, "What can this money buy?" they ask, "What can this money build?" That one question separates consumption from creation. The difference between wealth and possessions. One of the biggest misunderstandings in modern society is believing that expensive possessions automatically mean wealth. They don't. Someone may wear an expensive watch while drowning in debt. Another person may drive a simple car while quietly owning businesses, investments, and financial freedom. Possessions often decrease in value. Assets have the potential to increase in value. Rich people understand this distinction. They don't refuse to enjoy life. They simply build assets before they build luxury. They know that today's discipline creates tomorrow's freedom. The river that never stops flowing. Imagine a river flowing through a village. The villagers don't worship the river. They don't collect buckets of water just to admire them. They use the water. They irrigate crops. They generate electricity. They provide drinking water. They improve life. Money should flow in much the same way. It should move toward productive purposes. When money stops moving wisely, it loses much of its power. Money that creates value often returns with even greater value. Money used only to impress others usually disappears. The psychology behind the tool. Why do wealthy people think this way? Because they understand that every financial decision is a choice between consumption and creation. Every naira, dollar, euro, or pound has a job. You decide what that job will be. Will it disappear after one weekend? Or will it continue working for years? This doesn't mean wealthy people never enjoy life. They absolutely do. But they often allow their assets to pay for their lifestyle rather than relying only on their personal labor. Their goal isn't simply to earn money. Their goal is to build systems that continue creating value. That is a completely different way of thinking. Reflection. Take a quiet moment and ask yourself, when money enters my hands, what is my first thought? What can I spend it on? Or, what can I build with it? If someone looked at my financial decisions over the past year, would they see someone chasing possessions? Or creating opportunities? Am I using money Or is money using me? Remember, money is an excellent servant, but it is a terrible master. The moment you stop treating money as the finish line and start treating it as a tool, your financial decisions begin to change. And when your decisions change, your future changes with them. Because wealth is not built by loving money. It is built by wisely directing money toward meaningful purposes. But even people who understand this truth often struggle with another challenge. They earn money. They know its purpose. Yet they still spend it before giving it the chance to grow. And that brings us to our next psychological principle. Rich people invest before they spend. Chapter 3. They invest before they spend. Imagine two farmers standing at the edge of their fields just after harvest. Each farmer has gathered 100 bags of grain. The first farmer looks at his harvest and says, "I've worked hard. I deserve to enjoy all of this." So he sells every bag, spends the money, celebrates with friends, and lives comfortably for a while. The second farmer also celebrates his harvest. But before spending anything, he carefully selects the best bags of grain. Instead of eating or selling them, he plants them back into the soil. People laugh at him. "You already have enough," they say. "Why not enjoy everything now?" The farmer simply smiles. He understands something they don't. The grain he plants today will become tomorrow's harvest. 1 year later, the first farmer is once again worried about survival. The second farmer is harvesting fields far larger than before. The difference wasn't how much they harvested. The difference was what they did first. That is the psychology of wealthy people. Before they reward themselves, they invest in their future. The story of Samuel and Rebecca. Samuel and Rebecca started their first jobs in the same month. Both earned respectable salaries. Both dreamed of owning beautiful homes, traveling the world, and providing a comfortable life for their families. During their first payday, Samuel felt excited. "This is my money," he thought. "I've earned it." That weekend, he bought new clothes, expensive shoes, and the latest smartphone. He wasn't reckless. He simply believed that after working so hard, he deserved to enjoy his income immediately. Rebecca also celebrated her first paycheck. She took her parents out for dinner. She bought herself a small gift. But before she spent another naira, she quietly transferred part of her salary into an investment account. It wasn't a huge amount. In fact, some of her friends laughed. "What difference can that little money make?" Rebecca didn't argue. She simply remained consistent. Month after month, year after year, she invested before spending. There were months when it felt difficult. Unexpected expenses appeared. Friends invited her on expensive trips. New fashion trends tempted her. Sometimes she wondered if she was missing out. But every time she felt discouraged, she reminded herself, "I'm not sacrificing my happiness. I'm purchasing my freedom." Meanwhile, Samuel's salary increased over the years. But something strange happened. As his income grew, so did his lifestyle. Every raise became an excuse for new expenses. A bigger apartment. A newer car. More luxury. More subscriptions. More debt. Despite earning far more than before, he still found himself waiting anxiously for the next payday. Rebecca's lifestyle improved too. But much more slowly. Most of her additional income flowed into investments. One evening, nearly 12 years after they had started working, Samuel met Rebecca for coffee. As they talked, he asked, "How are you able to travel so often without worrying about work?" Rebecca smiled. "Years ago, I stopped working only for money. I started letting my money work for me." At that moment, Samuel realized something painful. For 12 years, they had earned similar incomes. But while he had been buying comfort, Rebecca had been buying freedom. Paying your future first. Most people follow this pattern. Earn. Spend. Save whatever is left. The problem is, there is usually very little left. Rich people often reverse the order. Earn. Invest. Then spend what remains. This simple change transforms everything. It sends a powerful message to your mind. My future matters just as much as my present. That mindset is one of the strongest psychological differences between consumers and wealth builders. The mango tree. Imagine planting a mango seed today. Tomorrow, there is no fruit. 1 month later, there is still no fruit. 1 year later, only a small tree stands before you. Someone impatient might cut it down, believing it is useless. But the patient farmer knows better. He waters it, protects it, waits. Eventually, the tree begins producing fruit every season. Investments work much the same way. At first, progress seems slow. Sometimes it feels invisible. But time has a remarkable ability to multiply consistent effort. The wealthy understand this. They don't become discouraged by slow beginnings. They trust the process. Investing beyond money. When people hear the word investment, they often think only of stocks, businesses, or real estate. But rich people invest in far more than financial assets. They invest in knowledge. They invest in health. They invest in relationships. They invest in mentors. They invest in skills. They invest in experiences that expand their thinking. Why? Because they understand one important truth. The greatest investment is often the one that improves the person making every future decision. A healthier body makes better decisions. A wiser mind creates better opportunities. A stronger character attracts greater trust. Those investments continue paying dividends for a lifetime. The snowball effect. Picture a tiny snowball rolling down a snowy hill. At first, it grows very slowly. Almost too slowly to notice. But as it continues rolling, it gathers more snow. Soon it becomes too large to stop easily. Wealth often grows the same way. The first investment feels insignificant. The second seems only slightly larger. Years later, those small decisions begin producing remarkable results. What once seemed impossible becomes normal. This is why consistency is far more important than perfection. Small investments made faithfully over many years often outperform large investments made only occasionally. Reflection. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself honestly, when I receive money, who gets paid first? My future? Or my impulses? If I continue managing my income exactly as I do today, where will I likely be 10 years from now? What small investment could I begin making this month? Not someday. Not when I become rich. This month. Remember this. Every investment is a message to your future self. It says, I believe you are worth preparing for. The wealthy understand that every coin planted wisely today can become a harvest tomorrow. That is why they invest before they spend. Because they know freedom is not purchased in one day. It is built one decision at a time. But even the wisest investments begin with something deeper than money. They begin with the ability to see opportunity where everyone else sees obstacles. And that is exactly what we'll explore in the next chapter. Rich people turn problems into opportunities. Chapter 4. They turn problems into opportunities. Imagine two travelers walking down the same road. As they approach a mountain, they discover that a massive landslide has blocked their path. The first traveler becomes angry. He throws his bag to the ground and says, This is unfair. My journey is over. He turns around and goes home. The second traveler stands quietly, studying the mountain. He notices a narrow trail winding around the side. The climb is steeper. It is more difficult. It will take longer. But it still leads to the destination. Years later, people praise the second traveler for reaching the summit. Very few remember the obstacle that almost stopped him. The mountain didn't determine the outcome. The mindset did. That is one of the greatest psychological differences between ordinary thinking and wealthy thinking. Most people ask, Why is this happening to me? Rich people often ask, How can I use this to my advantage? One question creates frustration. The other creates opportunity. The story of Olivia and Hannah. Olivia and Hannah had been close friends for nearly 15 years. They worked for the same company. They had similar salaries. Both believed they would retire from that company one day. Then something unexpected happened. The company announced that it was closing several departments. Hundreds of employees lost their jobs. Olivia was devastated. For weeks, she stayed at home, replaying the same painful thoughts. Why did this happen to me? Life is so unfair. I've wasted the best years of my life. Every conversation centered around disappointment. Every day, her confidence became weaker. She spent more time thinking about what she had lost than about what she could still build. Hannah was equally shocked. She cried the day she lost her job. She worried about her bills. She wondered how she would support her family. But after a few days, she asked herself a different question. What opportunity might be hidden inside this problem? She remembered that for years people had complimented her baking. Friends often told her she should start a business. She had always replied, maybe one day. Now, she had no choice. She began baking from her small kitchen. The first week, she sold only a few cakes. The second week, she sold a few more. Some customers complained. Some orders were cancelled. Some days she questioned whether she had made a terrible mistake. But every setback taught her something. She learned better marketing. She improved her recipes. She listened to feedback. She kept going. 3 years later, Hannah owned a thriving bakery with several employees. Ironically, the event she had once called the worst day of her life became the beginning of her greatest opportunity. When people praised her success, they rarely asked about the painful season that gave birth to it. Sometimes life closes one door, not to punish you, but to force you to notice another one. Problems are often disguised opportunities. Think about some of the greatest inventions in history. Many were created because someone encountered a problem and refused to accept it. Businesses exist because they solve problems. Doctors solve health problems. Engineers solve technical problems. Teachers solve knowledge problems. Entrepreneurs solve customer problems. The larger the problem, the greater the opportunity for someone willing to solve it. Rich people train themselves to see problems differently. Instead of seeing only obstacles, they search for possibilities. The potter and the clay. Imagine a potter holding a lump of clay. To someone else, it looks worthless, messy, ordinary. But the potter sees something different. He sees a beautiful vase hidden inside the clay. He begins shaping it, pressing it, stretching it, placing it into intense heat. Without pressure, the clay never becomes strong enough to hold water. Life often works the same way. Pressure shapes people. Challenges reveal character. Difficult seasons often develop strengths that comfort never could. Many wealthy people are grateful for struggles they once wished would disappear. Because those struggles taught them resilience, creativity, and discipline. The psychology of opportunity. Why do some people find opportunities while others see only obstacles? Because the brain naturally focuses on the questions we ask. If you ask, why does nothing good ever happen to me? Your mind begins collecting evidence to support that belief. If you ask, what can I learn from this? Your brain begins searching for solutions. The event may be exactly the same, but your question changes your focus. And your focus changes your future. The eagle and the storm. There is a fascinating lesson from nature. When a storm approaches, most birds search desperately for shelter. But the eagle behaves differently. Instead of fleeing the storm, it spreads its wings. The powerful winds that frighten other birds lift the eagle higher into the sky. The storm itself becomes the force that carries it upward. Problems can do the same thing. They can break you, or they can strengthen you. The difference often depends on how you respond. Reflection. Take a quiet moment. Think about the biggest challenge you are facing right now. Now ask yourself, what if this problem contains a lesson I haven't discovered yet? What skill could this difficulty force me to develop? Could this setback actually be preparing me for something greater? Am I focusing more on the obstacle, or on finding another path? Remember, Every successful person has faced disappointment. Businesses fail. Investments lose value. Plans fall apart. Dreams encounter delays. The wealthy are not people who avoid problems. They are people who learn to transform problems into opportunities. The obstacle standing before you today may become the story that inspires someone else tomorrow. Never underestimate what can grow from a season of difficulty. Because many of life's greatest blessings first arrive wearing the disguise of adversity. But recognizing opportunity requires one more essential habit. You must continue growing. You must continue expanding your knowledge. Because opportunities often pass unnoticed by people who stop learning. And that leads us to our next psychological principle. Rich people never stop learning.